Puerto Rico has declared a state of emergency over gender-based violence. Newly sworn-in Governor Pedro Pierluisi signed the executive order on Sunday to address a wave of killings targeting women and transgender people on the island. The order will be in effect until June 30th of 2022. The emergency declaration makes good on one of his key campaign promises. Syra Ortiz-Blanes is a reporter for the Miami Herald and El Nuevo. Herald, she has been following the latest developments from Puerto Rico. So this measure is somewhat unusual. Why was an emergency declared to combat gender violence on the island? It's risen to that level.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on today. So Puerto Rico has a high rate of femicides. A study from Kilómetro Cero and Proyecto Matria, which are two island-based rights groups, found that one woman is killed every 7 days on the island. For years now, women's groups and anti-violence collectives, have taken the streets, organized to push for this emergency declaration. So Pedro Pierluisi, the current governor, who's been in power for less than a month, promised in his campaign and platform that he would declare a state of emergency, which proposes a series of long-ranging initiatives that allocate funding and government resources to address gender violence on the island.
What I thought was really interesting about your article is it seems as if Pierluisi is sort of recognizing that this issue, kind of what we're seeing, the most extreme version, women being and transgender people being killed, the roots require a comprehensive, they have to tackle it in a comprehensive way, that they're looking not only at justice, but also at what children are being taught in school, whether or not women are being paid equally, as a messaging to say that they have value. But this order, what specifically will it fund?
Absolutely, your analysis is on point. Gender violence, anti-gender violence groups, part of the reason they consider this a victory is because it recognizes the role of the state in handling this matter. In particular, the order will be funding, a series of programs, public policies, campaigns, and technology to address gender violence on the island in a series of different ways. At a press conference on Monday, the governor did not specify exactly how it will be funded, but those numbers should be coming out soon. And he said that he would be inviting the press to talk about the funding of the order.
So violence against women and transgender people on the island appears to have worsened in recent years. What are some of the underlying causes? Help us to understand what's changed over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things that we can look at. First, it's public policy. Local anti-violence and feminist groups say that the government does not have the mechanisms to address gender violence and violence against transgender people on the island, and that the laws that are in place, there is no quality control or oversight to see whether they work or not. Second, there's an issue of social factors. There is a culture of machismo throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, and gender violence in a way can be understood as a physical and emotional expression of that machismo. And the third is simply the things that Puerto Rico has undergone in the last couple of years. There's been a massive amount of devastation. We've gone through hurricanes, earthquakes, now a pandemic, and studies show that gender violence increases after natural disasters because societies collapse. And just last year, there was a study from the Observatory for Gender Equity, which is a local watchdog group, that found that there had been 60 femicides, including 6 trans femicides. The observatory includes trans men and non-binary people in their statistical collection to make sure that these crimes are recorded, because they also have an element of hate on the basis of gender and identity. So, it seems that there's been an increase in these kinds of crimes, and that, as I mentioned, those natural disasters and the pandemic have had an impact on the numbers.
So the order calls for an advisory committee tasked with providing education, support, rescue efforts. It also includes a mobile app for victims. How will it all work?
Absolutely. So the order has a couple of key components. Amongst them is an official who will work directly with the governor and who is in charge of tracking progress. This was a very important aspect of the order for local groups that address gender violence and violence on the island, because they wanted someone to have, full-time oversight. There's also an advisory committee to recommend policy to the government and provide progress reports as the order is put into place. There's a follow-up program to have public officials check in with people who have filed restraining orders because of domestic violence. It mirrors a program that's already in some municipalities on the island and which has worked according to anti-violence groups. It launches a mobile app so people can request help quickly without detection from their aggressors. It also launches education initiatives from the curriculums in schools to expanding curriculum in the public schools to launching a media campaign to educate the general public. And it also finally recognizes that gender violence has an element of financial abuse and financial vulnerability. So they also hope to expand opportunities for women and girls on the island to establish financial independence.
So what's also really fascinating is the upswell from grassroots organizations and local activists that have pushed for action. What do activist groups think about these new measures?
Absolutely, no, and they've been fighting for this for years and pushing that policy. And their role in this order, this executive order being passed, should definitely be underscored. They actually gave the governor and met with the governor. They gave the governor a 28-page policy proposal on what this order could include. Groups on the island are happy. They consider this a victory, a first step to work with this administration to tackle the issue, but they're also vigilant. They say that the government has proposed initiatives before and not much has come out of them. So they are watching closely to ensure that this is followed through.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating approach, and I wonder if it's successful, if we will see it being repeated elsewhere. Syra Ortiz-Blanes, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And I agree, it's actually it seems to be the first designation of its kind in Latin America. Thanks for having me.
It's an important one. Thank you very much.